you think about that?
This is a dream for me, you know, the people who talk that I'm a top 5 draft pick when like in 2000, 2001 when Pau Gasol get drafted.
Your thoughts on the Kings?
Oh, they're a good team, they're growing, they have a very good players and young players, and that's important. And we'll see what they can do.
Russell Westbrook put it out there, he's going to shut you down. How are you able to keep your cool and play a solid ball game tonight?
Well, I mean, we play as a team. I think we did a pretty good job of containing the ball and winning. That is the most important thing. We're here to win games, and that's it.
No
way. Now you got Rubio bluffing the three. And he leaves for Steamsma. Minnesota fans getting to cheer plays like this. Rubio to the big guy Steamsma inside.
Rubio, who's currently with the NBA's Cleveland Cavaliers, is stepping away from the sport, this to focus on his mental health. In a statement released by the Spanish Basketball Federation this weekend, the 32-year-old saying, quote, "I want to thank all the support I've received from the Federation to understand my decision. Today, hashtag La Familia makes more sense than ever. Thank you." He added, "I would ask that my..."
Over the past few seasons, we've been constantly reminded that the era of some of the NBA's greatest players is coming to an end. And in doing so, ushers in a new era of younger players, each with their own story to tell. When it comes to point guards, a lot of this new era's story has one thing in common: Ricky Rubio's involvement. While Ricky Rubio himself may not hold any championships or have any crazy stats like some others, he's placed the building blocks for several of the guards that are now taking up the mantle, leading to his new nickname being the Mentor. Even more so, Rubio was a huge target for media negativity and was constantly in the spotlight, especially surrounding his personal life or injuries. Articles, rumors, and the overall sports media tore him down and practically transformed what could have been an all-star caliber player into a punching bag, scapegoat, and a shell of what could have been a legend. So let's take a look at everything Ricky Rubio has gone through, the pain, the slander, the endurance, and discuss why Ricky Rubio deserves his roses. While European or international players are more commonly the norm now, with players like Luka, Wembanyama, Giannis, Jokic, and the list goes on, Ricky Rubio was one of the first European prospects outside of Mutombo, Hakeem, and Dirk who had come before him. Ricky Rubio was such a prodigy, he was already playing professionally at age 14. For reference, Giannis didn't even pick up a basketball until age 13. Not only was he already playing professionally, he was putting up historical numbers. At 15, he recorded a 51-point game. But not only that, he had 24 assists, 12 rebounds, and 7 steals on top of it. Does that remind you of anyone? But diving deeper into this stat line, you may have noticed that I mentioned 7 steals as well. Rubio was only 3 steals away from a quadruple double with 51 points. Well, in that same tournament, he actually had 19 points, 13 assists, 11 steals, and 10 rebounds in 33 minutes against Croatia. It was these crazy stats that led him to even play against none other than the 2008 Redeem team for the gold medal in the Olympics for Spain. But as time went on, people were more hesitant on Rubio, doubting him and leading him to doubt himself. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the realm of his playing ability to start out with, but people's prejudice towards his off-court behavior. When evaluating players, it's important to not only evaluate their play style, but also their off-court activities. Otherwise, it may have unforeseen consequences. As for Rubio, however, it was never anything bad. Not bad at all, actually. In fact, in most people's eyes, it may even seem wholesome. But to the scouts, it seemed rather unusual, and they couldn't connect to it, and were hesitant to think that fans would connect to it either. Ricky Rubio's favorite movie was The Lion King. He had a collection of teddy bears and plushies, and most importantly, he was very, very close to his mother. Anywhere else, and this guy would have been a main character in a Hallmark movie. For the scouts, though, not so much. They considered it strange. While family is an important and crucial value in European cultures, especially Spanish cultures where Rubio is from, Americans couldn't quite grasp it, at least not as much as some coaches do now for their players. To the scouts, his connection with his mom meant that he was too dependent on her. It was a weakness. For instance, when having a pre-draft dinner with the Sacramento Kings, Rubio's mom cut his steak for him. His mom meant everything to him, which we'll get into more later. Regardless, this wouldn't be the end of disagreements between Rubio, the fans, and franchise executives. In 2009, the Timberwolves had both the 5th and 6th pick in the draft. With back-to-back picks, the Timberwolves selected both Rubio and Dooley. In Minnesota, Rubio was their dream player. Shockingly though, ESPN calls it a, quote, unrequited love. Rubio said that he wasn't a fan of playing in Minnesota. Among one of the more popular reasons that gets cited is the weather. Now at first that may seem very ignorant, turning down an opportunity to play in the greatest basketball stage simply because you might get a little chilly. Even Bleacher Report stated that Rubio had to, quote, get over himself already, and that it's simply unacceptable. But it is much more deeper than that. Minnesota's average yearly temp is lower than Spain's average in its coldest month. In Spain, the temps get to around 10 degrees Celsius in January. For Minnesota, it's negative 13. Rubio wasn't sure how his body would acclimate to the weather, and how he would be able to handle snow going from a place that's about 1 millimeter on average in Barcelona to over 70 inches in Minnesota. He further expanded on this point, once again thinking of his mother and stating the city is not suitable for her. Rubio also spoke out that he felt Minnesota did not trust him or put enough confidence in him, considering the fact that Dooley, drafted right after him, was also a guard. It made Rubio feel like they were drafting insurance in order to bet on his downfall. Besides, while most people see it as an amazing opportunity once in a lifetime to play in the NBA, for Rubio, he had again already been playing professionally since he was 14, so this was nothing new to him. Of course, this did not go over well with NBA fans. That same Bleacher Report article saying he had to get over himself ripped into him, stating, the worst part about this whole predicament is that Rubio isn't even that good. He's 18 years old, his defense is mediocre at best, he does not have a pure jump shot or a decent mid-range game. He has not exhibited the ball handling or decision making to be an effective NBA point guard right out of the gate. He really played the mother card. Is this the Spanish version of punked? He committed himself to the National Basketball Association to be drafted by a big boy team and signed to an adult contract. And now he asserts his ambivalence and starts exploring his undeserved options because his mother doesn't like the cold. I won't read the rest of it as it's pretty lengthy, but I'll leave it here for you all to pause and read if you want. And yeah, it gets pretty brutal. Of course, this was only made even worse when the franchise realized they were missing out on one of the greatest players of all time, Steph Curry, one pick behind the Timberwolves. However, stating that Rubio isn't even that good, like the Bleacher Report article, is a flat-out ignorant take. We already stated his previous triple-double and even quad-double escapades. While articles like the previous one were still coming out, others held out hope for when he would play, with comparisons to Steve Nash, Chris Paul, and more elite point guards of the decade. Rubio needed a few years off to think about where he wanted to play. Instead of playing in the NBA in 2009 when he was drafted, he went back home and played a few years in Barcelona. Only, something changed. With all the negativity around him, Rubio's shot percentage was taking a nosedive. As many have reported before, European basketball is very different from the NBA. While stat padding, award ladders, and other individual performance metrics have taken over the United States, Europe never lost the team element of basketball. Rubio was making crazy no-look passes and assists like Magic Johnson and Pistol Pete, but it wasn't enough for the team. Barcelona was losing and Rubio was benched, and with the consistent passing, he wasn't putting many shots up, so when he did have field goal attempts, they weren't that great. His 2-point percentage went down to only 28%, instilling even further doubt in the fans and franchise. However, that still didn't deter many. After a bit of convincing from none other than Kevin Garnett, he returned to Minnesota, where he reportedly arrived in Minnesota to big fanfare. He was still the 5th pick. He was still an amazing international prospect. He was still the, quote, next Steve Nash, and he was still a hope for the franchise. Twin Cities reported, like a rock star arriving in town for a concert, or even an heartthrob actor making his way down the red carpet, Spanish point guard Ricky Rubio was given a celebrity welcome. Fans brandished signs stating things like Ricky in the USA, Rubio Nation, Welcome to the Pact, and Bienvenido Ricky. A fan even shouted out, I love you, Ricky, which startled Rubio, claiming it was, quote, a little weird for him, given that the term love and other displays of affection are not so loose and casual or freely expressed to people not close to you in Europe. The New York Times reported, the Timberwolves announced a crowd of 15,013 for Rubio's debut Saturday, the largest for a Minnesota exhibition game since 1999. Despite the rockiness in Spain, the ceremoniousness of the fans was well deserved. He came out of the gate swinging. He was putting up over 10 assist numbers practically every night, with good steals, rebounds, and points along with it. Every pass was flashy and calculated, to the point that Kevin Love said they had to get adjusted to it. Quote, he doesn't ever like to look when he passes the ball, even on a simple, generic pass. He's somebody we're definitely going to have to get used to, or you're going to get hit in the face, hit in the chest, or miss the ball entirely. He was on track to easily be Rookie of the Year with the numbers he was putting up, all up until the point on March 9th, 2012, when a collision with Kobe Bryant caused an ACL tear for Rubio, ending his season and putting him out for the 2012 Olympics as well. And while Rubio was hyped on his arrival in Minnesota, that didn't mean that the haters went away, with people saying that he's a flopper and massive disappointment before the injury. This only added more fuel to the fire to call him a bust. I mean, imagine the Pelicans drafted Zion, he decided not to sign a contract for 2 years, and then when he finally does, he misses half the season. That's what people were thinking. Zone Coverage puts it writing, despite the initial optimism, team success never followed. The Timberwolves never made the playoffs during Rubio's first 6 years with the team, and Rubio regularly battled injuries and struggled to shoot the ball. Rubio would then become a scapegoat for the lack of team success, as his poor shooting was miscategorized as the sole detractor holding young phenomenons Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns back. Scapegoat. The word that could perfectly describe the next few years. To make it even worse, Kevin Love was becoming an amazing breakout player. He went from a sixth man to being in MVP conversations and being an all-star. The media began using Love's success against Rubio, saying that Rubio was wasting Love's prime, adding to the scapegoat and bust allegations. Bleacher Report after Rubio returned from injury saying, "A broken shot and a failure to live up to some pretty weighty expectations have made Rubio something of a scapegoat in Minnesota. After all, with Kevin Love piling up the stats on a nightly basis, somebody has to take the blame for Minnie's disappointing season." In March of 2014, quote, an informal poll of a few anonymous NBA scouts by ESPN writer Chris Broussard, Rubio was labeled the most overrated player in the league. What the media didn't understand was that Kevin Love was doing great because of Rubio. Again, Rubio was a passer, a playmaker, and could read the offense. His basketball IQ and assist were unlocking Love's potential, which Love stated himself on numerous occasions. When Rubio was signed in the 2011 to 2012 season, Kevin Love went up 6 points and was named Most Improved Player. The following season after Rubio's injury, he jumped another 6 points to 26 points per game compared to 14 points before Rubio. Rubio himself even became the closest to being the 5th player with a quad-double in 2015, recording 9 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds, and 8 steals in Minnesota's loss to the Knicks. But again, it was still a loss. Unfortunately, the media only cares about one thing: points per minutes played. Obviously, again, the more passes and opportunities he gives up, the less shots Rubio himself takes. So while Rubio's assist numbers were going up, along with Love's points, Rubio's points per game were going down, leading to further dogpiling and media scrutiny that he wasn't efficient. Backsports page writes, "The problem is that his numbers remained nearly identical for the rest of his Timberwolves career. Each year he got older, the more it became an issue. The narrative around him was always, if he could just shoot, or if he could just finish at the rim. Around 2015, he was found to be the worst shooter in modern NBA history." Britt Robson of Minnesota Post even wrote, "The handy way of Rubio's reputation has been stained this season began when the pundits discovered that he is currently the most inaccurate shooting point guard in modern NBA history. If you judge pure field goal percentage among guards who have logged at least 5,000 minutes in the league since 1968. Canis Hoop Us continues saying, "Ricky Rubio's shooting numbers were historically low. This has been repeatedly and rightfully brought up by writers, fans, and everyone in between. He shot the ball relatively well from behind the three-point line, but was horrendous from anywhere closer than that." And they perfectly summarize the point, saying too that the narrative shifts away from his shooting too often. The discussion turns away from Ricky's shooting and towards a scapegoat for the season, and it only continued to spiral out of control. Even when focusing on his passing, the media was setting him up for failure with unreal expectations. Bleacher Report released an article when Rubio finally signed with the Timberwolves in 2011, predicting that he would have multiple 20-plus assist games, get the Timberwolves to the playoffs, become top 5 in steals for the season, average 13 assists per game, and of course, have a 40% shooting percentage. All in just his first year. When that didn't happen, he was deemed a bust for not living up to the hype. Imagine if that happened to any other player today. It would be absurd. I could write an article claiming that if Wemby doesn't average 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 blocks a game, and have at least one quad-double in this season, all of a sudden, he's a bust? Please. With the team continuing to fail, Kevin Love started trade rumors by stating that his team was not doing enough for him and claiming that the team was bringing in too much inexperienced young guys. With many already blaming Rubio for the team's lack of success, They just used this as a further source to cite that Rubio was the issue, despite Kevin Love disputing that claim and talking about their chemistry. Minnesota Post writes, "A conventional wisdom has set in that makes Rubio the scapegoat for the Wolves' underachievement this season. Not so very long ago, he was regarded as the yin to Kevin Love's yang, a premier playmaker and budding co-equal to Minnesota's multi-year All-Star and gold medal Olympian. Despite everything, though, Kevin Love was finally traded away from the Timberwolves to the Cavs. Over the next few years, Rubio started to become a mentor for the younger guards on the team. Even if Rubio couldn't shoot, he could at least teach other guards his passing and offensive knowledge to add to their repertoire and pass it down. Chris Dunn, for instance, jumped all the way from 3 points per game to 13 points per game, with his assist going from 2 to 6 per game, only 1 year with Rubio. Star Tribune describes it, his court vision was unparalleled, and he knew how to use it, unloading passes that seemed to exist only in his mind. To watch him on the fast break, looking off defenders while flying down the court and dropping a bounce pass in a space that moments before was non-existent, placing the ball perfectly in the hands of a streaking Kevin Love or Andrew Wiggins or Zach LaVine, was basketball bliss. He taught a generation of Wolf fans how to read the court, to see those invisible seams and to rise to their feet the second the ball left his hands. It unfortunately only kept getting worse for Rubio, though, when Minnesota decided to switch coaches to Tom Thibodeau, who was also made the executive. Tibbs did not mesh well with Rubio at all. Tibbs came in and already set the standard that the team would be making changes and rebuilding. Canis Hoopus states, Thibodeau had consistently hinted at the quote-unquote Big Three, Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, and Zach LaVine, as the cornerstones of the franchise. If any players will have a hand in front office decisions, it will be one of them, not Rubio. With this Big Three in mind, Rubio was consistently taking a diminished role. To add to it, Dunn was starting to see more success, again due in part to Rubio's mentorship, and was starting to have increased minutes. Later in the season as well, Rubio had an elbow injury, even further making him take a step back while others stepped up. This led to more disagreement with Tibbs as well, when Tibb thought Rubio was over-exaggerating his injury and should man up and continue practice. Due to all these reasons, Rubio finally pushed back. Rubio started becoming vocal that he wants a bigger role and respect in Minnesota. Canis Hoopus again writes, Rubio also expressed an interest in carrying more influence in front office decision-making. He also added that his play in the second half of the season should add merit to his claim. These comments describe the heart of the ongoing tug-of-war between Rubio and the Timberwolves front office, especially Tom Thibodeau. Unfortunately for Rubio, this was already a losing battle going in. Tibbs was already seen as a successful coach coming off multiple 50%, 60%, and even 75% win-loss record teams, multiple playoff appearances, being part of the 2008 Celtics championship, and a Coach of the Year award, and he carried the Timberwolves to their first playoff appearance since the 90s. Meanwhile, Rubio had all the previous baggage mentioned. So when Rubio went public about disagreements between him and Tibbs, everyone took Thibodeau's side as the experienced and winning coach that knows what he's talking about. A similar mentality was taken to when he was first drafted, much like that Bleacher Report article, that he had to get over himself. And it didn't take long for an outcry for a trade and trade rumors to begin. Videos began to come out condemning Rubio, such as this one, claiming the Timberwolves have a problem player in Rubio. To make matters worse, Rubio's motherly love reached a climax. Rubio, who was so close with his mother, it almost cost him his spot in the NBA, had been battling cancer while he was on the Timberwolves. And tragically, in May of 2016, his mother passed away. Of course, this gravely affected Rubio's performance, attitude, and efficiency while he grieved. But of course, sports fans can be selfish at times, even telling Rubio that he should have missed the birth of his child for the playoffs this past season. And they were not sympathetic towards Rubio, meaning that Rubio was still being told to step it up and be a man through the grief for the franchise. The previous coach, Flip Saunders, had lost a battle to cancer as well, and Saunders' son was an assistant coach on the team. Rubio said that he watched as Saunders' son broke down and grieved while coaching the team, and Rubio wondered often if the same thing was in his future, until tragically it was. Sometimes at night during the season, I was going through hell. Waking up in, who knows, Sacramento, in LA, in the middle of the night alone in a hotel, and thinking, why am I here? Is it really worth it? When Timberwolves president and Flip Saunders died suddenly from lymphoma in October, it rocked the organization, and Rubio in particular. Watching Flip's son Ryan, an assistant coach on the team, grieve put a permanent pit in Rubio's stomach, giving him the sinking feeling that he was getting a glimpse into his own future. The first person Rubio always talked to after a game was his mother, and now he felt alone. Sometimes during video chats, Tana's was the first voice Rubio wanted to hear after a win or a loss. He scrambled back home after the season was over and spent about 6 weeks with her before she died on May 25th at the age of 56. Anyone can say he's close to his mom, said Lucas Chart, Rubio's close friend and manager. But when we see Tana and Ricky and how their relationship went, it was something else. There was a kind of connection between them. They were too similar. Ricky has a brother and sister. Nobody's parent will tell you they have a favorite, but you could tell that Ricky was Tana's favorite. The loss was so tragic that multiple reports and articles came out that Rubio considered retiring from basketball right then and there, ending his career for the sake of himself and his family. But as you can see by the length of this video, this was not the end. There was one thing that motivated him to stay. The 2016 Olympics were happening in Rio, which he had also contemplated pulling out of, but he took it as a goal to work towards. He thought if we couldn't win a championship in Minnesota, at least he could do this. A few months after her death, he could win not just a trophy from the NBA, but a gold medal, a symbol of victory for his country, for his mother, for her. It was reported Rubio wants to win for Spanish fans after falling short against the U.S. in the gold medal games in Beijing and London. He wants to win for teammates Paul Gasol, Juan Carlos Navarro, and Jose Calderon, who may not have another Olympic run in them. But most of all, he wants to win for Tana. Spain started the tournament 0-2 and Rubio was not playing well. Tana was not there, and he could not get her absence out of his mind. Rubio said, "I had a lot of things going on in my mind. It started with doubts. I started wondering if all this sacrifice was worth it. I put a lot of pressure on myself, like I've been doing my whole career. At one point, I decided to forget about all the pressure and just play for fun and do my game and enjoy what I do." Of course, though, the United States was stacked and took their 15th gold medal, while Serbia took silver, and Spain ended up with only bronze. Later, Ricky Rubio founded the Ricky Rubio Foundation in 2017 for cancer, in which his dad responded, "Your mother is still with us and is very proud." Later, he even wrote a memoir in tribute to his mother in 2019 called For You, Mama. It reads like an autobiography about how his mother was there every step of the way. I won't read it all here, but I will leave it in the description and pinned comment as it is very emotional. Tragically, the sports world again stops for no one though. And even amidst all of the grief, Ricky Rubio was traded to the Jazz in 2017 to make way for the Timberwolves' newly hyped Jimmy Butler, continuing our story. When Rubio went to the Jazz, it was like a flip was switched. Rubio was suddenly starting to have multiple 30-point games again, triple-doubles, made the playoffs with the Jazz both years, and was performing to what expectations used to be in Minnesota. Most importantly though, the Jazz had just selected an amazing guard from the University of Louisville, which was showing promise. Donavan Mitchell. Just as Rubio had done for Dunn, Rubio was becoming an excellent mentor for Donavan Mitchell. Quote, Rubio was a crucial part of one of the most exciting Jazz teams ever. The 2017 to 2018 Utah Jazz were an underdog, slated to be one of the worst teams in the league. Rudy Gobert, Donavan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, and Ricky Rubio pushed that team to heights no one expected, including getting a first-round win against the stacked Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 3 was Ricky Rubio's best game in a Jazz uniform. He put up a triple-double, outplaying the reigning MVP Russell Westbrook. The entire Utah crowd joined together to chant, Rubio, Rubio. Rubio was a leader and a fan favorite. Backsports page writes, Rubio had arguably his best years with the Jazz, making the playoffs both seasons. He mentioned the budding superstar Donavan Mitchell, who still had glowing things to say about Rubio even now, and posted his career best in points and assists. KSL writes, the veteran guard took Mitchell under his wing and taught him how to read the game. He showed him how to compete on every possession and how to pick his spots. Not only was Rubio being a mentor on passing and playing on the court, he was a leader off court as well in his actions. Quote, Rubio was always a positive influence in the locker room. Rubio rekindled the bromance with Joe Ingles that they had while playing in Europe. He built chemistry with Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors. He became a mentor for the phenomenon in training, Donavan Mitchell. He was complimentary of his competition for minutes, Dante Exum. During the throes of terrible losses, he played his damn heart out even when the Jazz were down double digits. Ask any Jazz fan, coach, or player to think of a game in which Rubio wasn't playing full speed. You can't. He was helping people through his foundation and even assisted in Houston Hurricane efforts despite playing for the Jazz. Like I said before, he's a Hallmark character. There's nothing to hate about Ricky Rubio. He's the type of guy to give up his Saturday to help puppies in a shelter. However, the Jazz were still not winning a championship, and despite Rubio on the team, they were still only 23rd in assists. On top of that, Rubio had also suffered another injury, putting him out for several games, putting his worth into question. The Jazz had to decide what to do, and Rubio was the quote-unquote wild card. There was no negativity on either side, unlike Minnesota, and both sides seemed to be okay with a trade in good faith. When the trade deadline approached, Twitter, social media, and the NBA was exploding with rumors, tweets, speculation, and more. Even Rubio himself had a bit of a laugh from him tweeting, Joe Ingles had 2 coffees this morning, league sources tell Ricky, poking fun at the fact that everything is documented during trade time. Rubio continued making jokes at the deadline, saying that his code to the practice facility still worked, and that he was putting his phone in airplane mode so he couldn't get trade news or calls from his agent. Surprisingly though, Rubio was in fact not traded at the deadline, but regardless, still decided to look for better opportunities, with the Phoenix offer of a 3-year, $51 million contract, which the Jazz did not pursue to match. With threes starting to take over the league needed shooters, and the Jazz decided instead to go all in on the Gobert-Mitchell pairing following Ruby's mentorship. Despite only playing a single season in Phoenix, so much is written about Rubio's time there. GMs were starting to take notice of Rubio's role on teams, especially in Utah, and used his time with Mitchell as the specific reason to get him. The GM of the Suns said, "Knowing that his experience, his winning pedigree, his ability to control a team, run a team, lead a team is something that we missed, something that we hadn't had recently in Phoenix," and continued on stating how they needed Rubio's leadership on the Suns to mold Booker and the team just as he did. "I think the thing that impacted me more than anything is what he did in Utah," Monty Williams said. "They were in this position a few years ago, and he was able to make those guys better. I know he has the ability to do the same thing and more here." Hoops Habit continues stating, "The Suns haven't had a playmaker of Ruby's caliber since the days of Steve Nash, and with the pace of the NBA higher than it was then, it could be a very entertaining season for them." And mentor he did. Despite signing for 3 years in Phoenix, he made his impact known as soon as he got there. Playing 65 of Phoenix's 73 games, Rubio nearly averaged a career high in points at 13 a game. He finished 4th in the NBA in assists per game and shot a career best 36% from 3. And once again, the mentoring came with Rubio coaching up none other than Devin Booker. His mentoring was so impactful that Devin Booker credited Rubio for helping him become an all-star for the first time in his NBA career. Devin Booker continued praising Rubio even further in another interview, stating, "I mean, we could be here all day. Even though it was just for 1 year, it was so impactful to my career. Just his veteran leadership, his IQ, his approach. He's a brother. He's someone who would always check in on you when he was on the team, and even when he left, too. The fit was so perfect that many speculated that he would be a perfect fit to stay. But as is said, there's always a bigger fish."
There's always a bigger fish.
There were rumors that Chris Paul was up to be traded, and while Rubio was a fantastic mentor, what's better than having the point guard himself to mentor point guards? After Rubio missed a few games due to COVID, the Suns weighed their options and traded Rubio to OKC for Chris Paul in order to pair him and Booker together in a similar fashion. But before Rubio played for OKC, he was once again taken to Minnesota. Not much can be said for his second sprint in Minnesota, as it was short-lived. But while in Minnesota, things were different. While the first time he was there, he was the hyped rookie, and he had to deal with the combination of injuries, Kevin Love, and Tom Thibodeau. Now, he was returning as the vet, meant to coach the rookies to live up to their hype. One of Rubio's main roles for the Wolves will be as the motivator. He pushes his teammates to play better and gives them opportunities to improve their shooting, and that is what a young 19-year-old needs in the first season in the NBA. Minnesota recently drafted another premium point guard after losing Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards. Star Tribune reports in an interview that Edwards said, "I'm growing and learning every day from Ricky Rubio, just trying to watch what he does. I feel like he's a great leader on our team. If I keep learning from Ricky, I feel like I'll be in a good position." He leads by example and communication. Some leaders, they're going to lead by example. Some of them lead by talking. But Ricky, he does both. He does it pretty good, if you ask me. I mean, I'm taking bits and pieces from Ricky, and he keeps telling me stuff that I don't know, and he's helping me grow and learn. He's the best leader I've been around all my life. When I make a mistake, he's going to talk to me and tell me what I did wrong and how I can fix it. He's always trying to get me involved in the game. On top of all that, Rubio recently had his son in 2020, just before returning to Minnesota. And he went on record publicly stating that his family will always come first, much like it did with his mother. He went so far as stating, "When my son starts school, the NBA will not be worth it. I don't want to make him dizzy moving around when he's 6 years old, at the age of starting to make friends. It was discussed with my wife and we have made it very clear. There will become a time when basketball will not be the priority." This began to sound off the signs that Rubio's career was beginning to come to a close. As Rubio got closer to the end of his career, he started to see much more positives. Rubio was traded to the Cavs to help mentor their young core as well. This was an emotional trade because Rubio was able to reunite with Jazz guard Mitchell, whom he mentored and saw the success through, and Kevin Love, one of the players he felt truly understood him from the beginning of his career. Rubio did what he did best. By this point, he knew his role. He was there not to be the star guard of the team, but to turn others into one. He was never meant to be Harry Potter. He was Dumbledore. He was never meant to be Neo. He was Morpheus. He was never meant to be Skywalker. He was Yoda. Rubio even said so himself as soon as he went to the Cavs, that he talked to Garland stating, "I'm going to have to challenge him in that area. I'm going to bring my experience the same way I did with Booker, the same way I did with Donovan Mitchell, the same way I did with the young stars that I had on my team." Seeing Garland being trained even brought back some memories for Mitchell, and he knew exactly what was happening. When asked about the team's success, Mitchell responded, "I think the biggest thing is you got Garland being taught by Ricky Rubio. He made my job a hell of a lot easier, just being able to see and feel the game. I can see how he's helping with Darius with that as well." The season before Rubio, the Cavs only won 22 games. Following Rubio's addition, they jumped all the way to 47 wins, and Garland had an all-star appearance. Tragically, it would all start to come to an end though, when in December of 2021, Rubio had a flash from the past. Rubio had once again injured his ACL, putting him out for the rest of the season. The New York Times puts it poetically, saying, "In that moment, as he locked eyes with Love, Rubio knew his Renaissance season was over. He shook his head as Love tried to offer words of encouragement, the déjà vu landing right in the pit of both players' stomachs. Not again. They had been here together before, in the spring of 2012. Rubio still came back for another season with the Cavs afterwards, but after being inactive most of the season, only averaging 17 minutes and 5 points, he knew it was over, and he had to deal with it. It was heartbreaking. New York Times reports through 11 seasons, Rubio had earned a reputation for keeping a smile on his face, even in some of the toughest moments. Yet, he could not smile now. He was done. The New York Times continues stating, "As the years have gone by, he has been hardened by the business of the league. He had been traded 4 times and learned of at least 2 of them via social media, dealt with several significant injuries, and heard the criticisms of his game from those who look at shooting numbers alone to justify value. His baby face is now covered with a thick beard. His right arm is cloaked in a tattoo sleeve of lions to honor his family and the wide eyes of his youth, seeing a lot more of the underbelly of professional sports now. Of course it has changed. Not changed who I am, but adjusting who I am, Rubio said. Relationships have been different now too. Because in the beginning, you give everything to an organization, but it frustrates you because it's tough love and we live in a business that sometimes opens your eyes right away. Ricky Rubio finally ended his career, with the last thing in his injury report simply reading, personal, only to never return. Ricky Rubio was more than a simple player. Multiple things can be said about him, such as he's instinctively thinking about his other teammates and the other part of him, which is much more unique and much more rare, is that there's a combination of charisma and intelligence. Not only do your teammates believe in you, but they want to follow you. Mitchell, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, and now Garland have all taken big steps just by being around Rubio. Despite him always smiling, he was fighting a hidden battle that started all the way back when his mother died in 2016, when he contemplated leaving basketball the first time, and now worse than ever when he had no choice but to leave the game behind. Rubio was reported stating, "I developed a chronic stress, something similar to an anxiety disorder. The only way to come back was to understand why I got to this point. The player ate the person. I didn't know who I was. It was a difficult moment for me. I had fear. You are able to handle your fears and play down them. Life is full of gray, but I have saved myself, and now I am at ease. I am proud of myself, and I give basketball a new chance." Rubio went to Twitter to voice the announcement, stating, "Hello. July 30th was one of the toughest nights of my life. My mind went to a dark place. I kind of knew I was going on that direction, and I never thought I wasn't under control of the situation. The next day, I decided to stop my professional career. One day, when the time is right, I would love to share my full experience with you all so I can help support others going through similar situations. Until then, I would like to keep it private out of respect for my family and myself, as I'm still working on my mental health. But I'm proud to say I'm doing much better and getting better every day. I wanted to post this message for you today because my NBA career has come to an end. It all started on June 2009, draft night in New York. What a dream. After playing 12 years in the league with all its ups and downs, I've collected lots of memories and great relationships. Minnesota, Utah, Phoenix, and Cleveland. Wow. Thank you. Special mention to Cleveland, my last home. I know the way things ended have been rough. I could never have imagined the year would develop this way, but you have an amazing organization with Kobe and JB, who have been extremely respectful and understanding of the situation and caring for me as a person. Thank you all for the love and support." While Rubio never explicitly stated a reason in the tweet, Rubio has spoken in other instances that the way the media portrayed him deeply affected him. Rubio stated, "I get chills thinking about the days when everything was dark. There was something clouding my mind that I couldn't get over. Now I'm much better with the help I needed to receive, and I'm rebuilding from the inside out, and not from the outside in." Rubio admitted that facing the internal conflicts associated with his image was another barrier he had to overcome. "I've always been the one who tried to be positive, but sometimes I was just lying to myself. He would tell me that I couldn't feel a certain way because that would slow me down. But if you lie to yourself, it ends up turning against you, and that's what happened to me. You have to be honest with yourself." Ricky takes stock of the time in the NBA where he experienced 12 years of ups and downs, stating, "Sometimes I wish I had an even better career. I would like to have won a title, but in the end I realized I enjoyed it. There were bad moments, of course. It has not been a perfect story, but I learned a lot, made a lot of friends, and grew during the whole process. I enjoyed basketball." As many players have said, Rubio was not only a mentor on the court, but for life. Ricky Rubio opened the gates for more mental health focus and discussion, not just amongst other athletes, but the world in general. And his former teammate Kevin Love, along with Mitchell, agreed in the message to help spread mental health awareness. Luckily, Rubio has recovered a bit and signed a contract with his old team Barcelona, where he started, stating they give him the space and resources he needs. But he also stated that if push came to shove, he would undoubtedly end his career in Barcelona as well at the first sign of mental health issues again, so he can focus on his battle. Rubio knew that his time with his mom was unfortunately cut short, and instead he wanted to spend as much time as possible with his son. Despite everything he did in his mental health, the debate unfortunately still rages on how good he really was, never putting an end to the media slander he has dealt with his entire career. So even if the stats don't seem interesting, diving further, we can see Rubio has had a hell of a story to tell. He has more than earned his break from the NBA. From being dragged around by reporters for being not good enough, to being the piece that turns rookies into legends. Ricky Rubio, we give you your roses. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I've been putting more space in between my uploads because I want to give more quality content like this. And once again, I went for a bit of a more documentary style, which you all always seem to enjoy. With that said, we're on about 10k subs, so be sure to like, subscribe, share the video around, all that good stuff. And hopefully, I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.